And could you just make me the host?
Yeah, you are host now.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Good evening. This is Gitika. As you would have seen, that the topic that we are talking about today is about AI in assistive devices. It's a little off topic from what we've been hearing, in terms of AI as a technology. I just wanted to bring up this as a topic because I feel it is quite the need of the hour, and it is a specific area where AI is definitely making its mark, and how technology is becoming that equalizer. This is not about going into the too technical details about how AI is getting integrated, or like what happens in the backend. It is primarily to apprise this group of some of the very interesting things that AI is doing for creating assistive technologies. And you understand assistive technologies helps a lot of people who have either genetic disorders or people who acquire any form of disabilities. Let's say you meet with an accident, or your parents are turning old, right? How can you provide them with assistive support, and how can AI play a role in that, is what we would be touching base upon today. I'm going to share my screen, and then, just in the interest of everybody, how my video shows up. I have two screens on my desk. This is the screen where I'm looking at right now, is where my Zoom is running. But as I move towards the slides, I'll be looking elsewhere. So don't think that I'm not like looking at you. I'll keep looking back at the screen also. On that note, let me just quickly share a presentation that I've put together, and we've also put a video so that we can explain some of these very interesting concepts on how assistive devices are being created for the reference of this group. Cool. So starting with the presentation on how assistive devices can empower people and create independence for you. Just quickly about myself, I am Gitika. I am the founder of nanowits.com, where we are trying to move India towards a faster trajectory, in order to catch up with what's happening in AI. I was also the co founder of Atypical Advantage, where we were helping people with disabilities get livelihood opportunities. This is a role that I picked up when I moved back from US, where I was working with Amazon as a product leader. I was with Amazon for close to 6.5 years, both in India and then in US. I have worked with companies like Times of India, which is obviously the largest media house, as everybody knows. I've also worked as a research and development engineer with Tejas Networks. This is prior to my MBA from IIM Bangalore. My undergrad was from Motilal Nehru, Allahabad, and I did my BTech in electronics and communication engineering. So that is pretty much about myself. If you would see, the topic that I have also picked is kind of a culmination of what I'm doing currently, and then the role that I was playing in my previous avatar as a co-founder, where we were trying to help people with disabilities. Um, I'm just looking at some stats now, moving on to the screen. A lot of you would not even know about it, but from World Health Organization, what we know is that 1.3 billion people, which is almost 16% of the world's population, has significant disabilities. It's a hard number to digest, but believe me, when you look around people in your own family and your friends and your society, you would start noticing a lot of people who have different forms of disabilities. Either they are born with it or they acquire it over a period of time. And it is a fact, and it again sounds very sad, but all of us might acquire some form of disability as we grow old. So everything that we're going to talk about today is not for some other person, it is also going to be about you. So think about it from that perspective. If you were to build solutions for your own self, what are those solutions going to look like, or how would you want to contribute towards those solutions? The other fact that is very important to know is that the global literacy rate for people with disabilities is as low as 3%. Again, a very, very sad fact. In general, we all want to be literate, but given that the accessibility support is not there, either in terms of the infrastructure or the devices that we have today, people with disabilities are not able to get that kind of literacy as the other able bodied people. And so we have to also bridge this gap. Now, how this gap is getting bridged is through assistive technology, where obviously a lot of us understand, there are devices that are coming out in the market, and we will talk about some of those today, which can help people live independently. It can help people live a healthy life. They can be more productive, so that the education that is not imparted to them initially is something that can cover up, can be covered up through technology. So, and also at the same time, giving them that freedom and independence that they can live a dignified life. As we've also mentioned over here, some of these devices that we all know and see around are all part of the assistive technology. So the hearing aids that we see, the glasses that people use are again like a format of assistive devices. We have wheelchairs, we have memory aids that have come out in the market. We have pill organizers, pill reminders, because as you grow old you obviously tend to lose out on your memory, and these devices come in very handy. You also have communication aids for people who have speech disabilities, as to they be able to communicate with the others who cannot understand the type of verbal communication that they do. It is also very interesting to see that AI is actually acting as that ally now, where it is empowering individuals through this assistive technology, so that they can be at the equal playing field as the other able body. It is also important to note that for people who are without disabilities, this technology generally makes your life easier. But if you think about for people with disabilities, technology actually makes life possible. I read this quote some time back and I just found it to be so profound and so valid, that we are all talking about creating technology so that we can make our life comfortable. But what is very, very interesting to note over here is that this technology could also make life possible for a lot of people, right? I think that is the power that AI is giving to these assistive devices, and which is what we are talking about today. I'll also quote one example from my time at Atypical Advantage. We were trying to identify some of these skilling courses for our cohort, which is people with disabilities. And what we realized is that something which is very technical in nature is generally hard for people with disabilities to learn. That was our hypothesis or assumption, but I still wanted to take a chance, so I approached Amazon and AWS, and convinced them to conduct a workshop for people with disabilities. What we did in order to make this happen is we introduced a lot of assistive features as they were about to take the workshop. So we had a trainer which could speak at a slower pace, because sometimes people with intellectual disorders find it hard to understand if you go at a very fast pace. We also brought in a sign language interpreter, so people with hearing impairment could also understand everything that is being spoken. And the tools or the presentations that they were putting out, we ensured that it is inclusive enough for people with visual impairment, so that if there is anything that is mentioned on the screen and it does not get read out, then it is hard for people with visual impairment to understand. So with that, we conducted a 5 hour workshop. We generally used to conduct 1 hour of workshop, and I was very apprehensive whether anybody would even turn out or not. And to my surprise, almost 110 people turned out, and till the end of 5 hour, almost 100 people sticked around. Now this is something that I myself in my own tenure at Atypical had never witnessed, because every time we would conduct any kind of workshop, it is barely like 20 or 25 people who would show up. For this particular workshop, which was so technical in nature, we had almost 110 people turn out. That itself shows that people have a willingness to learn, and they sticking around till the end showed that they found benefit in attending this till the fifth hour of a day, which was by the way a weekday. It was not even a weekend, that everybody was free and they could just come and sit for this workshop. So that gave me a lot of confidence. It also strengthened my belief that if you provide the right support system, people who have a willingness to learn would still come and learn, right? If you look at a lot of these edtech platforms, pick a penny, it could be the Coursera or Udemy of the world, and you would realize most of them are not inclusive. And that is also one of the reasons where a lot of us can, quickly upskill ourselves by going to these platforms and learning from there. People with any kind of disabilities who find it hard to read or listen through these channels are not able to get upskill, right? So if you provide a platform to people with disabilities in a more inclusive way, even they will be at a equal level playing field. Now, the consequence of doing that workshop was AWS finally agreed that they will offer, first time in its history. Imagine AWS itself has been such a old business, that they had never conducted a program for people with disabilities globally, and they agreed to do it for free of cost. They ran a 3 month course where they enrolled 40 people from India. It was all virtual, and we made sure that it was inclusive. The support that was provided was accessible for people with disabilities, along with the support that they were going to provide to help them get a job within the cloud services. So that is the power of making things happen when you have the right technology to support you, and how it can change the lives of so many people. So, on that note, I will move on to my next slide, and I will also give you one more beautiful example. Um, I'm sure a lot of you know about Nestle. Okay, not a lot. Everybody knows about Nestle because we all had Maggie in our lifetimes, right? Last year, Nestle came to us at a typical advantage, and they said that they have never hired people with disabilities in their manufacturing plants. So they have had people who work in corporates, but nobody in the manufacturing plants. So Nestle said, hey, we want to hire 5 people with disabilities and just experiment, do a small pilot, and see how it turns out. Basis that, we'll take a decision if we ever want to move forward in life, hiring people with disabilities in the plants. So we agreed to it. We went and did a recce of their manufacturing plant, which happens to be in Sanand, where they manufacture the Nestle Maggie packets. So we did a recce of the place, and we realized it is going to be hard for people with locomotor disabilities to move around, because of these there is heavy machinery and it is going to be unsafe for them to move around. What if there is a blocker and they're not able to move their wheelchair? Similarly, we realize that people with visual impairment might find it hard, because you have to move around in the premises, there are staircases, and if you don't have a human support along with you, then people, even if they take the crane, would find it hard. So we ruled out people with visual impairment. We finally agreed to bring in people with hearing impairment and said, let's figure out what are the right roles so that we can get these people hired, and then we'll take it from there. So we identified a role which was called as a sachet feeder role over there. And what they had to do was they had to count the number of Maggie packets and keep it in like small container boxes. So Nestle said, let's hire 5 people. When we brought in the batch, what happened was Nestle ended up hiring 12 people. They were so impressed with that group that they said, we'll not hire 5, we'll hire 12. We provided them with a program manager, and that program manager was responsible to be around this group of 12 people and work with them day in, day out to make things possible. So their onboarding, the safety instruction training, etc., that they have to undergo, the medical tests that they have to undergo. So everything was being taken care of by the program manager, who herself knew how to speak in sign language, so that she could understand the sign language that these hearing impaired candidate would speak through, and convert it back into human language that the people in the manufacturing plant could understand. So that was going on for almost a month. And I'll come back to the results after I talk a little bit about some of the disabilities. So bear with me for some time as we talk through some of these disabilities and what happened consequently, as we were working with Nestle. What I'm touching upon now is not just about the disability types. It is also about mentioning on some of the technologies that all of us in our lifetime have so far seen. The first one that we are obviously talking about is the motor disabilities, where what we know is that anybody who has any form of their limb, or even from like the neck back down, if there is any kind of a disability that exists over there, is what is called as a motor disability. We have obviously had some devices which exist in the market, wheelchairs being the biggest support system. There are crutches also, but obviously there isn't any technology over there, so I'm not touching on that. But we have had wheelchairs where you could, through the heat or touch of your skin, also be able to activate the movement of those wheelchairs, because it is also possible that people with the lower limb problems could also have upper limb problems, right? So how do you then move your wheelchair around? We've also had technology advance where there are voice recognition systems within these wheelchairs, where the embedded softwares in these wheelchairs can automatically understand if there is any kind of a paralysis that the person has, and they can use their voice to actually enable the wheelchair. Then obviously we have, which is called as prosthetics for amputees, which again helps people who have, let's say, half of your leg or half of your arms cut out. And then obviously, I'm sure a lot of you have seen, there are prosthetics that can be put, which through your signal from the brain can actually control the movement of the prosthetic that is put on your body. So these are some advancements that have happened, and they continue to happen as we speak. And this is where technology is playing a very important role. The second one is obviously the sensory disabilities. Now, these include everything right from, if you have a hearing impairment, if you have a speech impairment, or if you have a sight or vision impairment. Even for like sites where people have, vision problems, where you could be, I'm sorry, is there a question? uh, People who have, like, color blindness, or people who have myopia or complete blindness, they all fall under the sensory disabilities. At the same time, if you lose your speech or your voice capabilities or your hearing capabilities, those also again get categorized in the sensory disabilities. I'm sure a lot of you already know the kind of advancements in technology that have happened to support people with sensory disabilities, voice control being the biggest advancements that we have all seen in our lifetime, where people have enabled the touch, people have enabled just the voice control via speaking through it. And examples of that are Apple's Siri, Amazon's Alexa, Google Assistant, that you can speak to that technology. So let's say if you do not have, the capability of visualizing or seeing to interact with that technology, you can speak through it and control a lot of these devices, and you can even control your houses, right? So that is a very powerful technology in today's time. We have also seen screen readers, which is again a very important aid, where AI has, like, enabled conversion of a lot of text that is written on, let's say, this PDF or presentation, and images including, right? Like an image can completely describe what it is seeing right now on this page and speak it out to people who have visual impairment. Prior to this, people always just relied on Braille, which is again a very powerful, medium for people with visual impairment to read through. But Braille has its own limitations, and which is where these screen readers, which are now available on almost every good phone, and then your monitors and laptops, that people with visual impairment can also read or listen to whatever is there available on the screen. Closed captions is again a very interesting thing that has come out, where earlier it used to be someone manually typing it out and presenting it to people who have hearing impairment, so that they could read the text on what is being described through an audio format. Now we have obviously progressed to a level where even live captions are being enabled, right? So every time you're listening to a video on, let's say, YouTube, you obviously enable the live caption and you can read through what is being spoken, including converting it into a different language on the fly, right? So if you're listening to watching a Korean movie, you can just enable live captions in English and it will just convert it to you. So that is where, a lot of sensory disability assistive devices have come in. The third form of disability is cognitive disabilities, where it entails everything which is related to the also, like, it is in parallel also called as intellectual disability. um, this is when people have gaps or problems in communication, or in terms of the social skills, in order to interact with others in the society, as well as the learning skills. So again, there are a variety of cognitive disabilities, but the most common one that you would have generally heard about is autism, which is again a big spectrum. So cognitive disabilities, again, like, there have been a lot of advancements where we have had educational softwares that can make it easy for people, with these sorry, hello, is there anyone who wants to say something? Okay, so which can make your reading and learning much easier. We have speech recognition softwares now, which is again a very powerful tool where it can help you write, it can help you send emails, you can serve the internet, and everything that you want to do through speech, the software will be able to understand and convert it back in a medium in which you require the outputs in. So it could be in terms of a voice, or it could be in terms of a text, or even imagery, right? So these are some very basic advancements which I believe all of us have seen in our lifetime, and it has empowered a lot of individuals. Technology continues to empower a lot of individuals. I'll go back to my Nestle example that I was talking about, where we had hired 12 people in the Sanand factory. And what happened as a result of hiring this group was, the first month when we had this group working in the factory, we had tremendous amount of challenge. There were people who were probably working for the first time ever in their life, so they didn't even know what are the do's and don'ts, how to work in a setup where you have a responsibility for working in a plant for almost 9 hours. So there were a bunch of challenges, but obviously the biggest challenges was about communication. So communicating with the others in the factory was a very, very hard problem. And what happened was, the program manager was definitely playing a very important role. We started putting a lot of signages on the entire factory walls, so that people who can actually even translate, people who speak, could also look at some of the signages and then talk to people with hearing impairment for the common words, like it is about food or lunch break, or anything which is related to their factory premises rules and guidelines. We had put a lot of signages over there. The first month when we looked at the output, so we were also getting very regular reports from the factory premises. The first month was very bad. Like, the productivity was, I think, closer to 60% of what was expected. And by the way, expectations were not lowered because people had some disability. It was at par with what was expected from the other individuals. And what surprised us was that in the second month, this group outperformed everybody else in the manufacturing plant, which was something that we were all shocked and surprised. And this was possible only because a lot of things started moving on their own. People understood what their role was, people were able to master what they were required to do. I think this group also believed that they had a very important role to play and set as an example for others, so that more and more such opportunities are created and opened up for other people with any other form of disability. But what was also encouraging was that people with hearing impairment are so focused in their day-to-day work, because in a way they are cut out from a lot of other noise, right? I know they can't hear, but then at the same time they're also not, like, listening to a lot of noise around them, which is when a lot of people would be spending time gossiping or just talking or catching up, right? This group was super focused in only working, working, and working. And the numbers of, let's say, if they were to achieve 100 of whatever by the end of the day, what we realized is that they were doing almost 120. So the entire management unit was caught by surprise, and then they realized that they could actually increase the productivity of the entire group, looking at what this group was able to achieve. So I think that was a very big successful example for us, which ended up also doing wonders. Nestle said we will hire more people. In December of last year, they started the next cycle, ended up hiring 13 more people. So right now, if you any of you belong to Ahmedabad or happens to go visit the Nestle factory in Ahmedabad in the region called Sanan. You will see almost 25 people with hearing impairment working in that factory unit today. These are people who have gone via atypical advantage and they continue to do wonders and setting up examples for a lot of other people. So this is what I wanted to highlight on how if you enable people with the right set of tools, right set of technologies, right set of mechanisms, methods, solutions, a lot of things can be done in the world. It's just that we need to have those right solutions in place, and technology is a very very big factor in contributing towards that, those solutions. On this note, I want to now talk about a little bit on some of these emerging AI technologies. Some of it you already must be aware or you must be reading already. There have been some newer examples that I have not quoted over here, primarily because the success of those have still not been identified. They have either not, done a GTM, or they have not been able to prove out numbers. So some of those I have clearly, kept out of this presentation. But just to give you a little bit in terms of some other technologies that are coming out, um, there are IoT devices which are helping convert obviously these audible commands so that people who have visual impairment can look around what's happening and get the guidance. So I have a video also where we will see how that comes into play. We have technology where deep learning is creating in the wearable devices there are deep learning technologies being put that can help you recognize your medicines. And this is especially powerful for people with visual impairment, because assume you have this wrapper or a small box of medicines that you have to take on a daily basis. You can't look at that because either you have visual impairment, or over a period of time as you grow old you're not able to see through what is written in that fine text. So there are those wearable devices now coming in. So you could either wear it on your head or you could have it on your hand. There are other formats also that are coming out where you can understand what's written on those drugs or on those pills, and then accordingly take those medicines. There are systems that are being put together which can help people understand the scene around you. Now imagine we've been talking about these devices that can, you could just wear it and it could see through what is there in front. But let's say if you were sitting in a movie theater, right, versus if you are sitting in the comfort of your own room, versus if you are moving around in a mall, the scene is very different over there, right? So I want to understand the localized scene around me and then be able to make my decisions. What if I'm moving in a mall and, towards my right hand side, diagonal back, there is a shop that I would have loved to visit, but because my device only looks through straight, it cannot actually see what's there on, like, behind me. So it can give you a sense of the local scene in order for you to understand what is going on, and you can make decisions according to it. You could hear it out. There could be devices that can tell you through your phone or through, like, other forms, which you can through which you can learn about that information. There are
Ma'am,
again like very, yeah.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. The meeting is going to end soon, so I will just reshare the link so we can continue
Oh,
it
okay.
in the. Yeah,
Was it
it will
not
be in
for
the
like
chat. Hmm? Yeah, we
was
are
it
gonna
not for
continue
like
right now. Yeah,
sure, sure.
yeah. I will just send the link in the chat and also in the WhatsApp group. Please join that meet so we can continue. Thank you.
Om, can you give me the whole?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you can share the link in the other WhatsApp groups also. Maybe some people did not get the link.
Um,
Okay, I'll start so that, as people join, they can hear.
sure, ma'am.
Yeah, so we were talking about these wearable devices, where again, like some of these wearable devices, let's assume you were crossing a zebra path. There are it's very hard to even read those lines. So for people with visual impairment who have to cross roads, how do they even understand, like, where those zebra crossings are? So through image recognition, you could actually figure out, in like where these zebra crossings are, how many people are walking, in which direction are they walking, etc. Right? There are devices that have come out now in the market which are more like finger borne. You can read characters by just moving your fingers, and characters as complex as, the Chinese characters, where because the index finger is what generally people use to read through the text, right? So if you just wear that device on your index finger, it will keep looking through the text and read out what is actually being, where your finger is actually moving, so that, like, there is also this benefit that you get, that you can also read through the hard books, and it's not that every hard book has to be converted into a digital copy and it's only then that you can read through it, right? So there are those kind of technologies also that have come up. Again, a bunch of other technologies that we know about. There is something which is very similar to what I was mentioning earlier. There is a scene to speech devices that are now coming out, which can recognize, and if you see through one of the images also that I've put, that it could look through everything that is present in your vicinity, and captures it through images and video clips, and informs you of what is the current, like, scene around you, rather than being very one directional and figuring out, in the close vicinity, what exactly is happening with you. Again, there are devices which can recognize different gestures. This is very important for people with hearing impairment who just speak sign language. Till now, if you would have seen or realized, a lot of this used to happen async. That means that you could just speak, and something would get converted into sign language, the sign language might get converted back into human language in an async way, providing it to different softwares. Or you had sign language interpreters which are humans, if it were any kind of a live event where they would just stand on the stage and do this sign language interpretation for a lot of individuals. But now there are devices that you can hang on your neck, like, think of it like a necklace or a pendant that is hanging on your neck, where once you are making the gestures with your hands, it can convert that sign language into human language, and the device on the neck can actually speak out the human language translation of the sign language signs that you're making. Again, there are devices which are powered by artificial intelligence, which are again very lightweight. They have sensors in them which can, identify if there is, let's assume, a paralyzed patient and they are wheelchair bound. If assuming there is something that happens with them, then this wheelchair automatically detects using those sensors and informs the caretakers of these paralyzed patients so that they can get immediate help. Again, like wheelchairs is something where a lot of technological innovation is already happening. There are again a lot of IoT devices, a lot of microcontrollers that are being put in wheelchairs, which can also detect if there is a fall, and then it can give you voice message notifications, etc., along with enabling it through Wi-Fi, so that you could control a lot of inside the home kind of infra, just using your wheelchair. So these are again like very like small and simple kind of use cases there now. From what I read, is happening in the world of AI. The technology is far ahead and is far advanced. I'm sure a lot of you have seen all these robotic technological innovations that have come out, where it is just behaving like a human. We also saw one of these companies that is planning to create a system where it could replace your entire head with a new body, so that you can continue using, let's assume, your brain sensory functions with a newer body which is probably younger to you. Or think of it for someone who might have lost their limbs, but their brain is completely functional, and you could just replace the face with a different body. So those are some of the very powerful innovations that are happening, and a lot of this I was also mentioning it to you, so that folks like you who are very excited and are very enthusiastic about AI technology can also start thinking about solutions that you can devise in this space, because this is a very interesting area. Technology is playing a very important role, and this population is not a small population that you're catering to. It's a very big population that is ready and willing to incorporate these solutions in your day-to-day life. I also want to again go back to this Nestle example that I was earlier talking about. Um, if you remember, I mentioned this in the starting that it was only people with hearing impairment that we said we'll onboard, because of some of the reasons that do not allow people with other disabilities to be hired. Now, everything that I've told you about some of these, advancements that are happening with respect to technology and how it is empowering different forms of disabilities. Assume there were people with locomotor disabilities but had wheelchairs that could automatically lift themselves up and, like, get transported. Let's assume there was a blocker. Or what if there was a technology for visual impaired people, as we were saying, that can describe the whole scene to them, right? What if they are moving in the factory premises and there is a bigger machine that is being lifted from behind, and just because you are a visual you have a visual impairment and you can't see what's happening behind you, it would have been hard, right? Those were some of the safety risks that we had to be aware of. But now, if there are technologies like this that can give me a 360-degree view of what's happening around me and just speak it out loud to me, a person with visual impairment can also do the same work, right? So that is the power of technology, that it can make, like, it can make the platform equal for everybody. Everybody has equal rights, everybody gets equal opportunities. Technology just equalizes everything for everyone. So that is what I'm very excited about, how technology is helping, using these assistive devices, so many individuals that we had never thought about. On that note, I want to quickly show a video that we have put together. This is something that we've created as part of Nanobits, on how assistive technologies are using AI to empower a lot of individuals. So just bear with me for 2 minutes. This is a very interesting video. So let's take a look at it together.
Imagine a world where technology empowers everyone to live life to the fullest and becomes an equalizer for all. That's the promise of assistive technology. For those with mobility challenges, companies like Ibex are creating electric wheelchairs that use AI to navigate obstacles and move over a rough terrain, offering a new level of freedom. For the visually impaired, IC's innovative wearable device uses AI to describe objects and surroundings, making everyday tasks like grocery shopping a breeze.
Wearable assistive devices for people that has visual impairments, in specific to the domain of object identification and grocery shopping. Some of the existing work in this domain area are PSWIs, where users are able to access to a crowdsourcing platform by taking a photo with their mobile phones, or finger reader 2.0. Category 3 which are those who have a severe visual impairment but still have a certain eyesight, are the ones that could benefit the most from our apparatus.
IC is a discreet, reliable, and affordable wearable assistive device that helps people with visual impairments to see objects around them with the help of artificial intelligence.
You are holding a box of PanBio self-test for COVID-19. You are holding a box of Ripple tea.
What type of tea is it?
It is black tea with natural rose petals and extracts. Smart glasses from SHG Technologies take visual assistance a step further. They can identify objects around the visually impaired, read text messages for them, detect obstacles on the way, and recognize faces. Companies like NeoMotion are developing personalized wheelchair designed for good health, energy efficiency, compactness, and style. These are just a few examples of how assistive technology is transforming lives. It's a world where anyone can participate, explore, and achieve their goals. Learn more about what's happening in the space of AI. Visit thenanobits.com. Together, we can create a more inclusive and empowered world for everyone.
I'll just quickly move on to my last slide. Um, this is, I don't want to call it challenges, but these are again, like, think of these as open opportunities, where people, smart people like you, can play a very important role. How can we make things better for a lot of people? Some of these still exist as gaps. So I'll just take a very interesting example. The sign language, if any of you know sign language also, it has its own drawbacks, because one, the sign language is very different from an American sign language to Indian sign language. Within Indian sign language also, there are five variants of it. And then like sign language is a little complex when it comes to mathematics or complex equations. So think of how can, and in fact for that matter, like even coding, right? And that is why it is very hard for a lot of people with hearing impairment to become engineers or become technologists, because if they were to like study this with a person who does not know how to communicate it in sign language, they will not be able to learn how to say or write some of these codes. So one example that I've put over there is hash include stdio.h, right? Like, how would you even represent that through a sign language, or how do you even tell a parabolic equation in sign language? So can we devise solutions for them so that we are able to convert some of this through sign language for people who cannot hear? The other thing is, what we are talking about is about solutions for people who have color blindness. And what we have learned through studies is that almost 8% of men and 0.5% of women worldwide have some form of color blindness. Now, if I were to quote this with an example, we just had the cricket match season go on, and if you were to be a person with color blindness, for you to know, the jersey of Mumbai Indians versus Chennai Super Kings, it would be hard, because you will not be able to define the uniform of blue to yellow. So how do you even build solutions for people who have color blindness, right? Can you devise some kind of mechanism so they can also, enjoy the match as much as the other people who do not have color blindness? The other thing that is very important to be addressed is, and I'm skipping a few things over here, is on the data bias. Now, we all understand data is paramount to training all of these models, but what is also happening is that this vast majority of group who has disabilities is not being made part of this training data set, right? So there are biases in the data. The labeling process, the translation of the labeling process is not great. The labels are not verified, the diversity angle is not brought into it. So all of these add to challenges, and so the solutions that are coming out are also not catering to people with disabilities. So when any of you also is designing solutions, please always think about incorporating people with disabilities in your data group or in your user group, so that they are equally represented in any kind of solutions that you are building. Something else that I mentioned over there is obviously the speech recognition system for speech impaired people. A lot of people are working in the space of visual impairment and hearing impairment, but very few people are working on speech impairment, and that is primarily because the speech itself is not clear. We do not have enough data. A lot of people are not converting the speech, which is a little hard to understand, into a format that is easy to understand. So that is again a very open area for a lot of us to build solutions around. And obviously, like some things that I've also mentioned over there are smart wheelchairs, live sign language to human language convergence. Even though we've talked about a device that is doing it, a lot of that is still inaccessible, at least like to a larger population in India. Some of these solutions are being designed primarily outside. So when it comes to the conversion of sign language into an Indian format, those gaps still exist. So can we think about, solving for some of those gaps? On that note, I end my presentation. I've also listed my company's website over here. If any of you wants to take a look at it, please feel free to do that. We're aggregating a lot of interesting information about AI on our website, right from any kind of news and updates that are coming out. We have a lot of jobs that we are listing in the space of AI. We have a lot of tools that you can use in your day-to-day work that we have aggregated on our platform, including we are sending out very interesting industry insights. I have often shared with some of the groups that few of you must be a part of. Some of our newsletters also, where we do a lot of research and study as to how AI is helping in different industries, how some of these cool products are being created. We are also talking about specific terms which we are covering through our A to Z, AI alphabet series. So a bunch of things are going on. We're planning to also do a podcast soon where we'll be talking to a lot of AI founders so that we can encourage a lot more people to step into the shoes of creating something by themselves. So that's nanobits for you. Please do take a look at it, and also encourage you to share your feedback on how we can improve or what are the other things that we can cover. On that note, I'll stop. I know we are just almost on time. Happy to take any questions. And I'll stop sharing my
Could you like
screen.
just change the settings so that they can unmute themselves? I think they don't have the privilege.
Settings for what?
I will do that. Yeah, now
Also,
anybody has a question they can ask.
please feel free to also let me know if there is anything that you found useful about the presentation, or if there's anything that you wanted to learn more about. This topic. I've kept it very high level, at a very broad level, and not touched too much on the technical part, because my aim is to inspire a lot of you to get into solutioning in the assistive devices space. But yeah, happy to even go into the details if you have anything to talk about. You can even put it on the chat.
Hi, Deepika, I'm Anand. Am I audible?
Yes, Anand, I can hear you.
Okay, see, now nobody else is taking this wonderful opportunity, so I thought that I just happened to be, a little insect on the wall trying to eavesdrop on what you had to say. They're absolutely wonderful, right? So I'll just give a background. Like I see that you are into the application space of AI. I happen to have a background wherein we are looking at implementation of AI with a strategic perspective, with specific reference to India 2047, right? So, like when we call out national security strategies and policy decision making, so all those aspects. So we're looking. So the human side of it, you've been able to absolutely flag, which was brilliant to see how many, the lives that are getting touched by this AI application and this translation of narrow intelligence to, in subsequent years, we are looking at general intelligence and super intelligence, right? So a specific question that if I may ask, we know that what Neuralink has been able to achieve,
Yeah.
Elon, Neuralink. Yeah, we are also aware of neuromorphic computational algorithms and the likes, right? So this progression of technology is going to be extremely rapid. And if I may quote the chairman, Niti Ayog, who said that even rapid is not fast enough,
Yeah.
right? So this we are looking. Now, may I just ask him, in your visualization of things, uh, what is that specific aspect? I don't think we'll be able to achieve what Neuralink has been able to achieve on neuromorphic aspects in near time frame. So another 5 to 10 years, we are not reaching for sure. So given this constraint and the fact that there's a lot of push that the government and a lot of us have to simultaneously achieve, what would be that compelling technology or progression of technology you feel that can bring more such positive changes to so many people with disabilities who really require this technology? If you can just throw in some lights, that would
Sure.
be great.
Yeah, and I think the question has multiple layers to it, so it is hard to peel every layer and then answer. But if I were to answer it in a very simple way, I would say we are not looking at future. We are right now in that time where we are seeing significant change, and I'll quote it with an example. Atypical was started by Vineet Saraiwala. If any of you want to take a look at his profile, feel free to go and check it on LinkedIn. We have also appeared on Shark Tank in the second season, which is where he talks about his disability, which is retinitis pigmentosa, where with age his vision kind of started degrading, and at one point of time he completely lost his vision. He was my batchmate in IM Bangalore. That's how I happened to know him. He started this initiative almost 3 years back. For a very long period of his lifetime, he has not seen things. He has vision in only one eye, which is almost like 5 to 10%. He's the founder of the company. Technology has enabled a lot of things for him. He primarily works by using screen readers on phone, on laptop screens, and he's running an organization right now. The beauty of how things are progressing in the world of AI, GPT-4o came out, and then there were obviously other tools that were coming out which could describe everything for you. So even before GPT-4 came out, he had gotten access to a lot of tools where he could just pick up his phone and he could click pictures to see what's there in his vicinity. Otherwise, in order to move around a room or to travel from one place to another, he always needed a human. He's not a person who wants to be dependent on a crane and then walk around. So he was always dependent either on a human or he would do it independently. Now, with the advent of a technology like a 4O, right, where you could just use your phone and like assume if you yourself are not visually impaired, but you have your eyes closed, and that technology can just speak out everything that's there in your vicinity and tell it to you, right? So that is the power of technology. So what we are talking about is, again, it is to each individual what you describe as that north star or as that goal where we feel that we have already surpassed everything that humans could do. Even this technology, for a person like him, like the first time he used this technology and he described it to me, I had tears in my eyes, because a person who has not seen things around him for the last 20 plus years, to be able to just hear it out, right, and then visualize it in his head is already very significant. So I don't have a very crisp answer, because I think all of us are trying to answer it in our own ways. But to me, the time is already here. I am not looking at the future. I'm already in the present, seeing how this technology is enabling individuals.
Deepika, thank you so much. Wonderful insights. Really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. We do have some questions in the chat. How old is your firm? If you could just tell me, is it about atypical you are asking, or is it for nanobits, Deepak? I'm not sure of the question. For which company are you referring to? Okay, Deepak seems to also have left. I am not sure. But yeah, in terms of atypical advantage, we are a 3-year-old organization. Nanobits is 5 months old right now. Anushka, yes, please. You can just ping me separately. Feel free to take my number from Om and ping me. We can have a chat about this. Thank you, Divya Kumar. Glad you liked the session. Any other questions, feedback, comments?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. The session was absolutely amazing. It was a pleasure having you. So yeah, I think we should end. It's like an hour or so.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for taking our time this, Thursday evening and attending this session. I hope you took back something. And if you are already, like I said, designing some AI solutions, please keep in mind that you're also designing it for a larger group and not a smaller, restrictive group. Always include people who have some form of disability. Keep them in mind as you're designing your solutions. Believe me, you'll do wonders with what comes out. All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Have a great day, Geetika. And thank you, Om, for a wonderful session.
Thank you, sir, for being here. See you
Take
around,
care.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Guys. Good day.